Hey folks, welcome back to Only Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about Last Argument of Kings, the final book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. And I have just been having a blast rereading these books. Like one of the fun things about rereading this book in particular is that there's quite a few like subplots and threads that I'd completely forgotten about. That it was just fun to read them again, read what happens to them, how they tie into the larger story, how everything kind of culminates. But anyway, what is Last Argument of Kings about? In one word, war. Like, war is fully broken out at this point. The capital is on the siege, and it's full on war essentially. The king of Adwar is on his deathbed. Glocta finds himself beholden to so many masters that he's one step away from being a body found floating at the docks, I should say. And the king of the Northmen has never been more powerful. And a time for the reckoning between him and Logan Nine Fingers is fast approaching. So that's kind of the gist of what goes on in this outing, and it's absolutely action packed. Like the first two books, Joe Abercrombie spent a lot of time introducing the characters, getting the subplots rolling, and this is the book where everything comes to a head, everything pays off. Yeah, I like my mind is still reeling thinking about everything that goes down in this book. Like I said, there's some subplots in here I'd completely forgotten about until I read this again, and it was like, oh, holy crap, I forgot that happened. And yeah, anyway, um, I think one of the big things that kind of ties all these characters together for me is kind of like this concept of the death of their expectations. Like this is the finale of the book. You would expect like some sort of closure, some sort of ending towards the character arcs, but but that's where things get really interesting. Like it's pretty glaring in Luther and Logan in particular. Like Luther gets what something he's always dreamed about, and he finds it's the most horrible existence he could ever have imagined in reality. Then we have Logan, who throughout these books he keeps wanting to be a better person. Um, he keeps thinking that he wants to be a better person. He doesn't want to live the life that he's lived so far. But at the same time, he isn't active about going about this change. And as a result of that, like sheer impetus just drives him back to what he's always been. And that's kind of what we see happen in this book. Like, and he just gives up at this point, and he just goes goes right back to what he knows. And then there's the walk-in definition of impetus in this book, which is Glocta. Like literally from the first few chapters, Glocta has been questioning why he even bothers to do what he does, and he can think of no reason other than he's just going through the motions. And even through this book to the very end, he's just going through the motions. He asks himself this question, and he can think of no reason why he does what he does, why he endures what he does, why he agrees to undergo what he does. Like it's crazy. um, I don't know if he had any expectations in particular, but they were not met in this book, I should say. Um, yeah, so that was kind of fun to read. And then there's of course the unfolding events. Like Joe just kind of takes like all these multiple plot threads from all over the place, and he makes one big mosh pit. Like we have all these characters who kind of compress into into a series of different locations that all have ramifications on the larger story, like promises that are made or storylines that you know how to play out, and they do play out as expected here. Like it is very much a very neat wrap up, and we this happens on with the conflict on multiple fronts and on multiple levels. Like the conflict within the Northman faction itself that comes to a head, the conflict between Adua and its all its various neighbors that it's warring with, those come to a head. The larger conflict between the Meiji comes to a head in a pretty bloody spectacular fashion. Like this book is just absolutely bloody, graphic, pointless. It's glorious to the point of stupidity. How this war plays out, essentially, or I should say these wars, because it is multiple conflicts at this point. Like, I enjoyed every bit of it. I've been saying for a very long time this is one of my favorite series, and this reread holds it up. It holds it up spectacularly. At the same time, now having read the third book, I think I do have to agree with the masses when they say, unfortunately, that the Age of Madness trilogy, it is simply better written. Like, but that's not to say that these books are bad. Like these books are spectacular. It's just a testament to how much better Joe Abercrombie got as he progressed in his career. That those books, they are they are they are pretty good. Like, I think in terms of the story, those three books tell a tighter, more efficient story. But these books got it going on. Like, these books have Glockton. They will never. The Age of Madness trilogy will never top this trilogy for me, for the simple fact that these books give us Glockton. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, to bring it back to specifically about Last Argument of Kings, another thing I just really enjoyed in this particular one is that now that so much is happening specifically with Adur, the people of Adur become like, they play a larger focus on the story, and I just like the deadpan way in which, like, the masses, the commoners as a whole, they're just backhanded and belittled by the thoughts of the people who were in charge of this in charge of this nation. the way that they the way that they're just ridiculed and set aside as little more than their disdain. They're seen as little more than a resource, essentially. It's mirrored by other characters throughout this book, this trilogy, but this is the one, like, where it really drove home that these people just don't care. As much as they fight for power and they grasp for it and all of that, it's very much self-centered, it's very much self-serving. It has nothing to do with bettering the life of the common man or the nation as a whole, you should say. Like, and why that was so fun to read is because there's one particular character who, throughout these books, he started on one end of the spectrum, and as it's progressed and he's changed, he seems to focus more on the betterment of the common man, and oftentimes his internal monologue gives us it gives us a laugh, because his thoughts at the time, they don't mesh with the outward portrayal of the events that he's involved in. But by the end, it's gotten to the point where you have to wonder how much of it is him just clinging to the person that he used to be, as opposed to finally acknowledging that this is who he is. And who that character is, you can tell by the end of this book. Like, it's pretty clear. And it's, for me, that was a good piece of character writing, to see that transition, especially given the background where, like, this is pretty much how people are seen and treated in this nation. It shows how dramatic a shift, a mental shift, has to take for it to become something that you would hope to see in someone in charge, essentially. So anyway, that was my thoughts on the Last Argument of Kings. I think the big question is, after 10 years, after more than 10 years, I should say, with a reread, does it hold up? And yeah, I had a blast reading these. Maybe they're not as spectacular as I remember them to be, but they're still pretty bloody good. They reaffirm the fact that Joe is just one of my favorite writers, and I'm just excited to continue reading into the First Law books and get to probably my favorite book he's ever written, The Heroes. But yeah, that's kind of where I am with this. Like, I made the decision last year to reread some of my favorites after I had such a blast rereading the Cosmere, and so far the reread has not let me down. So I'm pretty happy. That's kind of my thoughts on Last Argument of Kings. And yeah, if you made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.